What if I told you one video changed everything? For years, whispers surrounded music moguls JayZ and Diddy, stories buried under fame, money, and silence. But when a 2007 clip resurfaced, everything shifted. Suddenly, what seemed like a harmless moment was being re-examined under the weight of serious allegations. Without that footage, would anyone have believed it? This isn't just about a video, it's about what happens when power goes unchecked, when the media looks away, and when the internet starts asking the questions no one else will. If JayZ wasn't caught on camera, this story might have stayed buried forever.
So this just in, Diddy allegedly has evidence of JayZ unaliving his mistress, Kathy White, and the reason Diddy isn't in jail yet is because he's cooperating with authorities to take Jay down with him. Kathy White was JayZ's side piece. Kathy was an up-and-coming industry publicist, fitness, and beauty expert when she mysteriously died at 28. JayZ was seeing her on the down low and got her pregnant. So according to a journalist, Kathy was going to tell the tabloids everything for the right price, but Jay found out and got her murked. Diddy is allegedly set to release the details of how JayZ unalived his mistress. Jaguar Wright hints that both the Carters might be responsible, but one of them is more responsible than the other, and she wonders if it's possible Beyonce's temper is a little worse than most people think, and Jay had to clean it all up for her.
The night that sparked it all. In the early 2000s, the music industry was in a golden era. JayZ and Diddy were at the center of this cultural explosion, two powerful figures redefining hip-hop and building empires that would influence everything from fashion to television. But while the spotlight showcased success, what happened behind closed doors was far less visible. The glitter of red carpets and flashing cameras often hid what really went on after the show was over. Fast forward 2 decades, and whispers that had long existed behind the scenes finally broke into public view. Allegations emerged surrounding events that took place at a private gathering shortly after a major music award show. While rumors of parties and excess weren't new, what shocked many was the seriousness of the claims, stories of manipulation, abuse of power, and individuals being silenced under the weight of celebrity status. The industry, once full of reverence for these moguls, suddenly found itself facing uncomfortable questions. What made this case different from others? The timing, and more importantly, the existence of video evidence that surfaced later. This was no longer just about speculation. The entire narrative shifted when a seemingly playful video from years ago was reevaluated under a completely different light. And as it turns out, if JayZ hadn't been caught on camera, few would have believed what was about to come next. The video that changed everything. In 2007, a clip emerged that at the time didn't raise much concern. It showed a public, lighthearted interaction between JayZ and Diddy during a music festival. What most people saw was two successful men joking around, performing in front of fans. But over a decade later, that footage was recirculated online, this time alongside a series of disturbing allegations involving both men.
Now, Jaguar Wright is a well-known whistleblower. She has predicted many of the crimes Diddy is charged with today. Now, as of recent, she had an interview with Piers Morgan, and she did say that JayZ and Beyonce were implicated with Diddy. Now, let me know your opinion on the things she's sharing about JayZ and Beyonce.
I have 3 victims right now who are willing to give testimony about not only what Mr. Carter has done to them, but his wife as well.
She's referring to JayZ, Sean Carter.
They're a nasty little couple. They do nasty things.
What do you think happened with Kim
Keeping people against their will, putting people on planes while they're unconscious, just like Aaliyah got on that plane, unconscious. There's a lot of things that people don't want to talk about.
So essentially what she's trying to say is that JayZ and Beyonce are doing or have done similar things that Diddy is being accused of. What do you guys think about this? You think it's true? You think she's full of it? Let me know down below.
The once dismissed video was suddenly at the center of a cultural reckoning. The tone, the gestures, the context, everything was being reanalyzed. What was once shrugged off as hip-hop camaraderie now felt loaded with a different kind of energy. The power dynamics, the body language, and the forced laughter began to look like something else entirely, especially when paired with fresh accusations from individuals claiming long-term trauma. More importantly, it raised the question, how many other moments like this existed but were never captured on tape? The video became symbolic. Without it, the allegations might have remained fringe rumors, easily denied or dismissed. But with even a small piece of visible evidence, the conversation shifted. For the first time, the public saw a crack in the facade, just enough to take a second look.
There's just been a shocking revelation from federal authorities regarding a highly private and scandalous video involving none other than JayZ and Beyonce, reportedly taken during a wild party hosted by Diddy. Apparently, during a Homeland Security raid on Diddy's properties, some rather intriguing discoveries were made, including compromising footage featuring numerous beloved celebrities caught in scandalous situations. Speculation is rife that Diddy intentionally leaked this footage to authorities as a form of revenge against the Carters, allegedly due to their perceived lack of support during his legal battles. It seems he's on a mission to embarrass them at any cost. Adding fuel to the fire, an unsettling audio clip allegedly featuring Meek Mill and Diddy has surfaced, courtesy of Diddy's former bodyguard.
A pattern hidden in plain sight, the music industry has always had an edge of excess. Lavish parties, VIP access, and anything goes energy were normalized, sometimes even glamorized. But beneath that surface was often a much more toxic reality. People talked, industry insiders whispered, but the names involved were often too big, too powerful, and too well connected to challenge. Over the years, several lawsuits and testimonies began to surface, referencing inappropriate behavior at industry events. These stories often shared common threads: young talent being promised mentorship, drugs and alcohol being involved, and experiences of fear, confusion, and pressure. It was a culture of silence, carefully maintained by NDAs, settlements, and the sheer influence of celebrity. The situation involving JayZ and Diddy fit neatly into that bigger picture. What was once seen as a one-off claim now looked more like a possible pattern. The re-emerged video gave those claims a backbone. For the first time, the world began asking, was this just the tip of the iceberg? Were there others? And most chillingly, had this behavior been protected and enabled for decades? Media coverage and public opinion. In the early days of the allegations, mainstream media was noticeably quiet. Unlike other scandals involving celebrity misconduct, this one didn't dominate headlines. Coverage was fragmented, small outlets picked it up, but the biggest names in news treated it cautiously, almost like it was too hot to touch. This silence raised an important question: why weren't they reporting? With JayZ and Diddy's massive influence in media, entertainment, and business, some began to wonder if their power extended into shaping the narrative, and even silencing it. On social media, it was a different story. The public wasn't waiting for CNN or Rolling Stone to break the news. Instead, the conversation exploded across Twitter, TikTok, YouTube, and Reddit. Threads connected dots, reshared old interviews, and resurfaced video clips, including the now infamous 2007 video between JayZ and Diddy. Users began analyzing not just the allegations, but the entire ecosystem that allowed these powerful men to rise unchecked. It wasn't just about guilt or innocence. It became about how power shields people from consequences.
It's a big week for JayZ. His Rock Nation is geared up to produce the most watched live performance of the year, the Super Bowl halftime show. And of course, he was there to cheer on his wife, who took home the coveted award of Album of the Year at this year's Grammys. So in light of all of that, he's also making a surprising move in his ongoing back and forth with Tony Busby. Now at this point, we all know who the Texas-based attorney is. You know, the same one who said that he had more than 100 accusers ready to file lawsuits against Diddy.
After vetting, we now represent 120 individuals who intend to bring civil claims in civil court against Sean Diddy Combs, as well as claims against many other individuals and entities that we will name as defendants as we file these individual cases.
And of course, we know later that Jane Doe, who is being represented by the Texas attorney, filed a suit a couple weeks after this press conference accusing Diddy of raping her when she was just 13 years old. Then amended that complaint weeks later, adding JayZ, well, Sean Carter's name to that child rape.
This gap between traditional media and digital discourse created a new kind of tension. On one hand, people demanded journalistic integrity. On the other, they were forced to do their own investigating. And in doing so, the public took control of the story. They weren't waiting to be told what to think. They were demanding answers. The public's hunger for truth turned what began as whispers into an unavoidable conversation, especially after realizing how many allegations over the years had slipped through the cracks, ignored or dismissed because they lacked a smoking gun or a viral video.
It's a big week for JayZ. His Rock Nation is geared up to produce the most watched live performance of the year, the Super Bowl halftime show. And of course, he was there to cheer on his wife, who took home the coveted award of Album of the Year at this year's Grammys. So in light of all of that, he's also making a surprising move in his ongoing back and forth with Tony Buzbee. Now at this point, we all know who the Texas-based attorney is. You know, the same one who said that he had more than 100 accusers ready to file lawsuits against Diddy.
After vetting, we now represent 120 individuals who intend to bring civil claims in civil court against Sean Diddy Combs, as well as claims against many other individuals and entities that we will name as defendants as we file these individual cases.
And of course, we know later that Jane Doe, who is being represented by the Texas attorney, filed a suit a couple weeks after this press conference accusing Diddy of raping her when she was just 13 years old. Then amended that complaint weeks later, adding JayZ, well, Sean Carter's name to that child rape lawsuit alongside Diddy. A female celebrity was also mentioned in that complaint as well. However, her identity has since remained a mystery. Since that happened, well, first, let me say both Sean Combs and Sean Carter have denied those accusations. Diddy's team said, quote, "In court, the truth will prevail, that Mr. Combs never sexually assaulted or trafficked anyone, man or woman, adult or minor." Meanwhile, JayZ made a scathing statement of denial, mainly targeting Tony Buzbee. He said in part, quote, "My lawyer received a blackmail attempt called a demand letter from a lawyer named Tony Buzbee. What he had calculated was the nature of these allegations and the public scrutiny would make me want to settle. No, sir, it had the opposite effect. It made me want to expose you for the fraud you are in a very public fashion. So no, I will not give you one red penny." Now that statement went on to call Tony Buzbee a deplorable human, a man with no valor, and an ambulance chaser in a cheap suit.
The power of video evidence in celebrity cases, one clip, just a few seconds of footage. That's all it took to shake the confidence of fans who had idolized these men for decades. The 2007 video of Diddy and JayZ was initially seen as humorous, lighthearted, and unimportant, but context changes everything. After the allegations surfaced, that same clip became evidence of a different dynamic, one that raised eyebrows and questions. What seemed harmless before now looked calculated, uncomfortable, even controlling. In celebrity culture, video evidence has become the great equalizer. In a world where money can buy silence, lawyers can draft NDAs, and PR teams can bury stories, a raw clip can do what few legal systems have managed: reveal the unfiltered truth. Whether it's TMZ releasing elevator footage or fans capturing behind-the-scenes behavior on their phones, videos have taken on a new power in shaping public perception, especially when people feel they've been misled for years. That's what made this case so unique. The video didn't prove wrongdoing, but it validated suspicion. It opened the door. It made people pause and ask, if this is what they're willing to do on camera, what's happening off camera? And once that question is out there, it's nearly impossible to ignore, because suddenly it's not just about what we saw, it's about everything we didn't. That's how one video became a symbol of what many believe has been hidden for far too long. The culture of silence is cracking. For decades, the music industry has had a reputation, a culture where what happens at the party stays at the party. The line between professional and personal blurred constantly.
Harvey Weinstein, Jeffrey Epstein, Robert Kelly, Sean Combs have one person in common, professionally and privately: Sean Carter. This has been a fist of tyranny that has been punching through our culture and our society for decades. It must stop until him and his cohorts are all held to account publicly and legally. The victims, they're not safe. I have 3 victims right now who are willing to give testimony about not only what Mr. Carter has done to them, but his wife as well. They're a nasty little couple. They do nasty things. That changes now, Sean. You have no choice. Everyone knows.
Power, fame, access, and control were all wrapped up together, often creating a dangerous dynamic, especially for those new to the scene or vulnerable due to age, status, or lack of support. Whispers of bad behavior were common, but proof was rare, and consequences even rarer. That's changing, slowly but surely. More individuals are speaking out, not just about Diddy or JayZ, but about the system that allows powerful people to go unchecked. Former assistants, industry insiders, bodyguards, even artists who were once under the mentorship of these their stories. Each new account adds another layer to the picture, and while not all of them result in lawsuits or headlines.
I actually met Beyonce before. That was one of the people be like, who you met? You know what I'm saying? That like it threw you out, like it took you back. Like, you know what I'm saying? Beyonce, I was at a party at Diddy crib in LA. This was the beginning of 2020. You know what I mean? Diddy had put everybody else out the crib. Like the influx of people, he had put them out. But he had took a liking to me in particular around the time, man. It was really, you know what I mean, like putting his arm around me.
Right.
So he had put majority of the people out, but he allowed me to stay in there. Me and, you know, maybe about 15 others, you know.
Right.
JayZ and Beyonce being, you know, two of the other 15 people in the room. So that'll just put into perspective of the type of company I was in
right.
at the moment, you know. And she came over and introduced herself to me like as if she had to.
Right.
Beyonce, cut it out. But I'm a big fan of your work, you know what I'm saying? Whoop de whoop, and that was just dope.
They collectively erode the wall of silence that has protected the industry's elite for so long. There's still fear, of course. Fear of retaliation, fear of losing opportunities, fear of being disbelieved. But there's also a new wave of courage. The internet in particular has become a powerful tool for anonymous sharing and community support. Survivors are finding each other. They're comparing notes. They're refusing to stay quiet. And with each voice that joins the chorus, the harder it becomes for even the most powerful people to pretend that nothing happened. The era of silence is ending, not with a bang, but with a million voices refusing to be ignored. Accountability versus cancel culture. Accountability versus cancel culture. Whenever stories like these surface, the debate reignites. Are we canceling people or holding them accountable? For fans of JayZ and Diddy, the news has been especially difficult. These aren't just artists, they're architects of culture. They shaped entire generations, broke barriers, and redefined what it means to be a black mogul in America. So when they're accused of dark behavior, it feels personal. It forces fans to ask, can I still respect the art if I no longer respect the artist?
Its own goal?
The hip-hop agenda is an agenda to move drugs all over the United States. They move, you need to involve the DEA. They move all the dope, all the dope on private jets, which don't get screened by
customs,
by DEA inside the United States. Okay, they move what's called high-grade powdered MDMA. They move cocaine and they move liquid cocaine in their bottles too. Okay, so they put the liquid cocaine in the bottles and they move it. I've seen the liquid cocaine. I've drank it myself, having sex with Diddy and Cassie. Okay, it's not good. He drinks.
But this conversation isn't about canceling. It's about truth and consequences. Accountability doesn't mean immediate exile. It means examining the facts, listening to those who speak up, and making space for uncomfortable truths. It's about deciding what kind of culture we want. One where power is protected at all costs, or one where everyone, no matter how rich or famous, is subject to the same standard.
Disgraced music mogul Sean Diddy Combs, once known for his lavish lifestyle and living large in his multi-million-dollar mansions, has a new home as he awaits trial in his federal sex trafficking case. Last week, the Bad Boy Founder's defense team unsuccessfully fought to keep the music producer out of federal jail after his arrest. Now his new digs once house other high-profile inmates, including R. Kelly, Fetty Wap, Sam Bankman-Fried, and Ghislaine Maxwell. Diddy is currently housed at the Metropolitan Detention Center in Brooklyn, New York, a stark difference from the glitz, glamour, and wealth in Hollywood and Star Island in Miami Beach, Florida. But MDC Brooklyn has been described as hell on earth, with horrifying conditions. The facility, which now houses Diddy, opened in the early 90s and is the only federal jail in New York City after the Bureau of Prisons closed its Metropolitan Correctional Center in 2021 after many issues came to light in the wake of Jeffrey Epstein's suicide just 2 years earlier.
Sean Combs is focusing on things he cannot control. He will have a miserable experience when he can call home, when he can visit, the living conditions, exercising maybe an hour a day, showering a few hours a week. If he fixates on that, it is going to be miserable, and every day will feel like a year. On the other hand, if he can learn from those who have come before him and master the experience, my business partner served 26 consecutive years for a nonviolent crime, including 8 years in the penitentiary. He never complained. He focused on his family, trying to prove worthy of the love and support of his family. If he can do that, the experience, it won't be easy. I'm not insane. it will be more bearable. The choice is up to him.
And as far as we know right now, he has been kept in solitary confinement or the SHU right now, and he's been on suicide watch. How different is that experience from being in the general population?
It's much harder. If you like to be around people, you like communication, if you're an extrovert, and then suddenly you were isolated 23 hours a day on total lockdown, I'm not spinning that it's difficult. It will test the strongest mind. But he has to understand others have gone through it and emerged successfully. And what he and his lawyers have to understand is they have like a messaging problem.
The truth is, no one wants to believe their heroes are flawed. It's painful, it's disillusioning, but it's also necessary. Because if we don't make room for accountability, we send a message that fame is more important than justice, that power is more important than people, and that's a message that history has proven to be dangerous time and time again. What happens next? So where do we go from here? As lawsuits unfold, evidence is reviewed, and public opinion evolves. The future for both JayZ and Diddy remains uncertain. Will these allegations result in lasting damage to their legacies? Or will they weather the storm and continue building their empires? Only time will tell. But one thing is clear, the conversation has changed. The public is watching more closely, asking harder questions, demanding more from their idols.
They continue to say things that do not get them closer to what they want, which is bond. It's led to indictments. And if he can begin to introspect and kind of reverse engineer some of his choices and recognize it is my decisions alone that have led me here. And if I can communicate differently moving forward, maybe the ultimate sentence, even if convicted, could be better, perhaps could lead to bond eventually. But it can be very difficult in segregation. And his lawyers have to stop blaming and excusing and talking about how difficult the experience is, because here's what a judge is going to say. If you were so concerned about what these filthy living conditions would be like in a detention center, if you were so concerned about your safety, you wouldn't have obstructed justice. You would not have, according to the government, created victims over a sustained period of time. Until he changes his message, more problems are going to follow.
And Diddy allegedly has been accused of using different drugs in the past. Even prosecutors have said on the night he was arrested that there was allegedly pink.
There's no question. People who know they're going to prison who have been on medications, either illegal or illegal, it would be wise to understand the Bureau of Prisons might not prescribe you what you like. And if you're taking illegal drugs, unless you're engaging in the prison hustle, you're not going to get it. It would be easier to get the drugs and engage in the prison hustle in general population, but not when you're on lockdown for 23 hours a day. So certainly it is a brutal adjustment if you are on no drugs, but certainly if you are withdrawing, isolated 23 hours a day without getting things that you can get the snap of a finger, it makes the decision or the process that much harder, which is why I can assure you, based on what happened with Epstein, the high profile nature of the failures of this prison in the past, including some judges not even sending prisoners there because they were so concerned about their safety, you can expect staff is watching him, not 22, 23, 24 hours a day. They do not want more problems.
And this is a man going from private chefs and food from across the world to a set menu just like any other detainee or inmate.
The industry too is on notice. Labels, brands, and production companies are realizing that partnerships with powerful figures no longer guarantee protection. In fact, they may come with more risk than reward. Silence is no longer the smart move, it's the suspicious one. Fans are no longer passive. They're researchers, archivists, and commentators. They expect transparency, and they don't forget easily. For the people who came forward, the next steps are personal, healing, validation, maybe justice. For everyone else, whether fans, industry insiders, or future artists, this moment should serve as a wake-up call, a reminder that power without accountability leads to abuse, that fame doesn't erase guilt, and that one video, one voice, one brave story can change everything. Because if JayZ hadn't been caught on camera, none of this might have ever come to light. And so, we're left with a single haunting truth. If that video of JayZ and Diddy never resurfaced, we might not be having this conversation at all. That's the terrifying reality of fame, power, and influence in today's world. For years, people spoke in whispers, stories came and went, claims were made and buried. But it took one grainy, forgotten clip, just a few seconds of awkward energy, to make people stop and pay attention. Not because it was undeniable proof, but because it was something. And sometimes, something is all people need to finally believe. This isn't about taking sides. It's not about canceling anyone. It's about asking better questions. It's about listening before dismissing. It's about protecting truth in a system that's built to protect power. Because if we only believe victims when there's a camera rolling, then how many stories have we already missed? What comes next depends on us, on the public, on the press, on the people willing to speak, and those willing to listen. This moment, this video, might be a crack in the wall, and what's behind that wall could change everything we thought we knew about our idols, our industry, and our world.
All right, Jen is with me now to talk about another story making headlines today.
Yeah, so this one is actually sparked by these pictures. That's 49-year-old P. Diddy with his hand on his girlfriend's belly. Now that is 22-year-old Lori Harvey. They're in Cabo. She's, of course, talk show host Steve Harvey's stepdaughter. People are talking about maybe she could be pregnant. You know, he's rubbing her belly a little bit, but...
She's put up some Instagrams, I think, that show some clues. Sushi, right? Sushi, a bad thing for pregnancy.
It could go either way. But then also she posted this picture of green juice, which, you know, why would you want a flatter tummy if you really can't avoid it because you're carrying a child?
Ooh, this is conflicting evidence. Okay. Lori was once actually linked to Diddy's son, Justin.
Okay.
Okay, so they were together and then engaged a couple years ago to a Dutch soccer player. She told Carissa Thompson about how he popped the question.
We were in Malibu. I remember the
Were you
time. It was
freaking out?
11:30. I thought it was a joke, and then he went in his pocket, and I just started shaking.
They split up later on that year. Lori and Sean were actually spotted with her dad, Steve, on a boat in Italy earlier on this summer.
That's all. Well, then that's it. He's given the blessing. They're together.
Gave
It's
his
a beautiful
approval.
thing, right? Steve once gave us a little dating advice.
This is what I told this boy who came to take my daughter out. I said, listen to me, son. Whatever you do to her, I'm gonna do to you. Now go and have a nice time.
That's graphic.
Many dads have used that line before.
No, I'm just kidding, but listen though, right? Here's the problem with Diddy and Lori, right? See, I think that like they're a thing, right? But then I kind of don't think they're a thing. Because if you ask sources close to Diddy, they'd be like, okay, which we did around the Jamaican Fest time.
Yeah, but we didn't this time, and not
we did it this time.
Nobody's saying nothing.
I mean, you're right. But the Jamaican time, though, they said, like, oh, she's a friend of the family. She's been a friend of the family. She's friends with everybody.
This is friend of the family week.
Friend of the family. Let's not forget, too, she dated Diddy's oldest son, Justin, and a lot of people online, too, are making a comparison between Lori and Kim, who passed away. Obviously, Diddy's the mother of his children, and Lori actually posted something when Kim passed saying, I'm having a hard time. It was just a really nice message, and a lot of people are dragging her on the comment section.
So, okay, but so let me just say something about what Brad just said,
So don't let this conversation fade. Stay aware, stay curious, keep asking questions. Because once you've seen behind the curtain, it's your responsibility not to look away. If you found this video thought-provoking, share it, leave a comment below with your thoughts, and remember, the truth doesn't always shout. Sometimes it's hidden in plain sight, waiting for someone to finally look close enough. Thanks for watching.